And good morning, everybody. We are live. Congratulations. You made it through the week. Another one is in the books of fantastic quality assurance, food safety, protecting the public, and making sure that everybody's enjoying their food. I am Bryan Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group, and if you're here, welcome. This is the Food Safety Chat Live, and we are here every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we talk all things food safety. And what's really cool about this show is I get to come on here, bring on an expert, and we have a conversation around food safety and what's going on in the world out there relative to food safety. Because in this field, things are constantly changing, constantly evolving, and we need to make sure that we're keeping ahead of the curve. And so it's just a great time. And what you'll notice here too, this is not a presentation. This is a discussion. And this is just not Cori and I. This is all of us talking. So if you're new to the chat, please type in and let us know your thoughts and comments. We'll throw them in the conversation and have a fun time. So with that, I'm really happy. I love, if you're new to the chat and you haven't experienced having Cori on here, you're in for a treat. Cori Muse with Muse Safety Solutions. How are you doing today, Cori?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. I love the color of your shirt, by the way. That is cool.
Thank you.
Very, very nice. I like that. It matches something orange in the background I can see on your bookshelf.
Maybe it could. Maybe your book. I don't know. Your book is back there.
Is it back there somewhere? Cool.
It's back there somewhere for sure.
Good morning to Homero. Good morning, everybody. So one of the things that we love to do here in the chat is let us know where in the world you're at. I am in beautiful, rainy, believe it or not, Loveland, Colorado, where we've just been getting, I think May in Colorado here in the Denver metro area was like in the top 4 for the rainiest on record, which is really weird, but I don't mind because it's, keeping my lawn nice and green and I don't need to turn the sprinklers on. So that's nice. So where are you at today, Cori?
I'm in South Texas in Edinburgh. So nice and hot and humid.
It's kind of one of those things with where you live. So I grew up in Wyoming. And I'm used to dry. When I moved back east and lived back east for a while, and I never got used to humidity. And
it's some people hard.
And people who live in humidity and come to really dry areas, it's the opposite, right? They're like, "Oh my God, I'm so dried out," and all these type of things. So it takes some getting used to, that's for sure. It's also hard if you live somewhere with mountains, not having mountains, because it's kind of your frame of reference. If you're in a really flat place with nothing to look at, it feels weird.
For sure.
Definitely. So one of the things that we love to do here on the chat with everybody to kind of start off with our ritual is everybody, please raise your mug with your favorite beverage with us. And
not coffee today, just a protein shake.
Nice. So cheers, everyone. Very nice. Very nice. So if you're not familiar with Cori, number one, you need to be. And she keeps track of information in a really developing space around e-commerce and food delivery and other aspects, but she really zones on these type of things. And we're going to kind of get an update on what's going on in those worlds and things that you need to worry about. But part of this as well is kind of looking at who are the players in this space, because we're not talking, giant food companies that we're used to. A lot of these times are entrepreneurs, and that I think that's a good thing. And how they approach this is interesting, because as we have all these different varieties and different beverages and different products out there in the marketplace, these are entrepreneurs that are bringing these things to the market. And really, Cori, they're just trying a lot of ways to survive, right? So picture, a 20-something kid out of college has a great idea for a new energy drink or a plant-based protein product or what have you. The last thing on their mind, Cori, is food safety, right?
Right.
They're out there and they are trying to come up with the next big thing. And when you're doing that as an entrepreneur, there's a saying in software development, Cori, where it's MVP, minimum viable product. So the idea with software is You create a bare bones product to see if that is what the consumers in the marketplace really want. And if they don't, fine, you scrap it and you start over. You don't want to create a product with all kinds of money and investment just to have the people go, yeah, whatever, and giant risk. And I think that mentality as well falls over into food manufacturing and these type of things too. So they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to create this minimum product and get this out there in the marketplace. And they're just really trying to survive.
Yes. And yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times they don't intend to hurt anyone, but sometimes their ignorance to the facts and resistance to listen to those of us that have things that people don't want to hear is a little bit of the problem. Because usually when someone from our department is showing up, it's going to be something that's going to delay the next step. Rightfully delay the next step, but definitely not something they want to hear.
No, definitely not. And I'm sure you get these calls too. I get these calls every now and then. Hey, my grandmother has a rockin' salsa that, I want to start selling. And what do I need to do? And you're just like, where do you start?
Where do you start?
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah, okay, great. It's a wonderful tasting product, but to get that into the marketplace, yeah, I mean, canning regulations and food safety and all these types of things. It's, the mountain that they need to overcome to get in these areas is just amazing. And even if they are successful, number one, right, let's say that I have a product and it's starting to take off and it's starting to do well. At that point in time, let's say, Cori, that I need to hire people because it's too big for me now, and I'm using a kitchen I'm renting to produce my product and throwing it in a container and these type of things. And I need to get help. My only thought at that point in time is cash flow, right? Oh my God, I've got to keep this thing afloat. I got to pay my vendors. I've got to buy materials. I've got to go to a trade show. I've got to get out there and be a salesperson. And that drive and that risk-taking mentality is not what's necessarily needed to run a company. There's a show I've been watching, I think it's on Netflix, called The Food That Made America. Have you seen that one?
I have.
Oh, that's amazing. And these guys, I mean, one of the things that comes through in this with these different entrepreneurs is they bet everything. I mean, so it's like Kraft. I mean, so he was a salesman and he got fired from his job and he was stranded in Chicago with like $60. And he's like, you know what? I'm getting really tired of moldy cheese. I'm going to figure out a way to make cheese better. And he dedicated his life to that and everything that he had to try and make that happen. Incredible risk-taking. And to have that mentality and do those things is just amazing. The person who invented silk soy milk, amazing entrepreneur. And then he stepped into a CEO role within a company. No, completely different skill set. A CEO, and a lot of people don't know this, is that the CEO is hired by the board of directors. A lot of people, Cori, think that the CEO is the boss. Well, kind of. He reports to the board. The board of directors is really the boss. The board of directors sets the goals of the company, sets the objective, all these type of things, and then they hire a CEO to execute that plan. And then they hire sales and marketing and operations and quality and food safety and all the people that they need to help them do that. That skill set is very different than the person who is the entrepreneur. So people like Elon Musk, who are good at both, exceedingly rare to have that skill set. And the reason I brought that up too is because that entrepreneurial person who is driving to get these products into the marketplace is not the person you need to figure out the food safety and all of these type of things associated with the product. And they need to be smart enough to realize that they're not the person.
Agreed.
Yeah. And a lot of times they don't realize that a product starts taking off and then all of a sudden they're in a really difficult spot because it's kind of like the old saying, Cori, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And they're kind of blindly, right? They're stumbling around in the dark, hoping that everything works out. And they don't realize that there's this giant risk out there.
Yeah. And I mean, to their, side of it, they are just starting out. They don't have a lot of money. They don't want to invest. I mean, like you said, you get clients that call. We get the same thing. And when we tell them our rate, they laugh because they're like, oh my God, that is too much. And it's like, well, if you want to get your product in the store, that's what you're going to have to pay because I have the skill set that can get your product in the store. So they have a decision to make. Do I make this investment early on? How do I pick somebody that I trust? Because we have a lot of clients that invested up front and trusted the wrong consultant, spent 6 figures, and they walked away with nothing but useless templates that they, they can't use. So, they're also green. They don't understand what we do. So how do you balance when you're going to bring in these food safety professionals? And I say often you get what you pay for. So if you buy someone at a bargain, don't be surprised when you have a bunch of recalls or you have some sort of infestation and you can't figure out why. But the bottom line is that you do need food safety. And there's 2 issues I see with the government right now with the delivery food is they're just not really doing anything. They're not regulating. They're not offering a whole lot of guidance. The guidance documents that I've seen come out are silly. They are more applicable to food manufacturers. And it's easy to say follow HACCP principles if you don't know how these companies work. Well, how do these companies follow HACCP principles? Because I get a feeling the people that wrote those guides haven't been in these operations seeing how they work because it's just not that simple. And then, the other coin is too, is you want to do the right thing and events happen, but you feel exposed. You don't want to expose your business. I have some clients that were doing the right thing, but, they're very nervous. They're very careful about how we go about doing these activities because they don't want to get in trouble with the FDA. But in my opinion, they shouldn't get in trouble with the FDA. They're identifying a problem, they're controlling it, they're investigating, they're correcting it. So, I mean, the industry in its current state and the FDA and the way things are going with the FDA right now, I think is kind of the perfect storm for the issues that we're seeing with these delivery foods and e-commerce foods.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, Cori, that's a really good point because in a lot of ways, the regulatory side of thing is a trailing activity. It's never keeping ahead of what's going on, which kind of like gets into our topic today, which is around this whole piece around delivery food and DoorDash and companies like this. So first off, so everybody's kind of level set with on this. What I don't use these companies. So what is DoorDash?
Yeah, so DoorDash, if I were to explain it, I would look at it more like an application. It's a technical application that connects consumers with restaurants and drivers. And you've got the phone app, you've got the web app, and beyond that, I don't know their exact business model and how they operate, but I imagine, they contract to the restaurant and they make a deal with the restaurant and they make a deal with the driver. And then they advertise to us. But the problems I see with this is that it's usurping their legal responsibility because at any given time, DoorDash didn't mishandle the food, the driver did. And the driver is an independent contractor. They're not an employee of DoorDash. They don't receive any training. To my knowledge, I don't know that they even receive any equipment, even in the form of like cold bags, hot bags. Maybe they do, and I'm misspeaking. The restaurants, what I find when I order DoorDash food and there's a problem is everybody's blaming everybody and you never really get an answer. And it's really a coin toss. And, I do use it when I travel. I travel a lot and there's sometimes when you just either in an area that's not safe or it's just not feasible for me to get in the car and drive to go get food. So it's important that they keep their consumers safe, but what rules do they have to follow right now? And we know that companies generally will do the bare minimum. If they don't have regulations, they're not going to follow them. And I see a comment in there about ghost kitchens. Like this is another really big risk, one that I've discovered time and time again. Because like I said, I'm an auditor. I travel all over. So I have the opportunity to look at these restaurants and sometimes I just go look just for the fun of it. And let's say I go to a small rural town, and I've driven through the whole town and I've seen everything there is to see. But then I get on DoorDash and I see this front for a restaurant that's just beautiful. It looks like something, you'd see in Dallas or something. And it's not a restaurant. If you do enough research and you look and you pan in on Google, it's somebody's house. Or it's once even I got one that was in a building inside of a strip mall where there was a Dillard's. And so I don't know if there was a kitchen inside or if they just borrowed that address or what had happened, but this food is not coming from a restaurant that is regulated. And the consumers that are buying it are under the assumption that all of this is kosher and that the FDA is handling it and that it's safe. And hey, if it weren't safe, the FDA wouldn't let them do it, right? I hear that a lot. So it's a risk in itself, but now we're seeing there are some pretty big class action lawsuits against DoorDash alleging, quite a bit of deceptive business practices.
Wow.
And I would say that's indicative of very poor culture, whether you want to call it food safety culture, just call it general company culture. They've had a few things alleged. They're saying that they're doing some, deceptive pricing where they're charging iPhone users more than Android users because they assume that people with iPhones are in a higher income bracket than Android users. And who would have noticed that unless you had two people with two phones ordering and then you go, hey, wait a second, your bill is less than mine. What's this about? What else? I'm gonna have to look at my notes so I don't misspeak.
Yeah. So, while you're checking that out, so here's kind of the connection with the entrepreneurial piece. So you look at a company like Uber or something like this, same thing, where it's like, okay, we'll hire people who are not employees of the company. They're contractors. They have their own car, everything else. And we'll use them as our labor force and we'll have them move people around. Well, probably what happened with like DoorDash is another entrepreneur looked at it and said, hey, I got an idea. Instead of moving around people, let's move around pizzas, right? And the model was born. And they had no idea of the risk they were taking on.
For sure.
Very interesting. So within that, it's like an app. Right? Like, oh, okay, cool. We'll just create this little software thing that links these two things up. I'll make a ton of money. I don't have to do anything. And whoo-hoo, look at me. I'm an amazing entrepreneur. Oh my goodness.
But beyond that, what is going on? You're mistreating drivers. Some of the claims are that they hold drivers, fees, tips, whatever you want to call them. And if they want to get them the same day, the driver has to pay money to get their wages, which is a little questionable. There's a lot of fees on the app that say they're delivery fees. They lead the consumer to believe that the drivers are getting this money. The drivers are not getting this money. The restaurants are not getting this money. There's a option to do express delivery. And I looked at that before and thought, is it really express? But I started to notice the window would be like 15 to 35 minutes for express. And then the regular is just like 20 minutes to 35 minutes. And the overlap isn't much. And there's no guarantee that they're even going to do it in the express time. Oh, and come to find out it's not really express. It's all just a big scam. And the fee doesn't go to the driver or the restaurant. The fee goes to DoorDash. So there's all of these little nuances that this lawsuit is claiming, this is just really deceptive business practices. And again, they're making people sick. And, I think I talked about, there's no training. There's not a whole lot of vetting with the drivers, which on one hand, that's great. A lot of people can get jobs, but we just need some basic training, some basic background information. The girl that was defecating in the lobby of a customer, that right there, on so many levels, that's just so unacceptable. I don't even know what to say about it. It just feels like this has turned into the Wild West. This is crazy. Is it really 2023 and we have all these advancements and we have this sector of food that's just running wild. We have technologies that could make it safe, but we're not employing those technologies because the fact is that these business models, their profit margins are very tight, if not losing money. So it's just, like I've said before, it's creating the perfect storm to have these events.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, and all says here as well. I mean, so high turnover, and yeah, it's like they're looking for warm bodies. Hey, have you got a car? Are you conscious? Okay, cool. you're a driver. I mean, gosh, this just opens up so many different doors. I mean, so companies like DoorDash and things like that do this. What type of screening do we even know? What type of screening they have for these drivers?
No, I'm not sure that there is a whole lot of screening. I think it's just kind of like a sign up process similar to driving with Uber or Lyft.
So I just had in my head the kind of this picture of, okay, if you were in a restaurant and you ordered food and you're kind of sitting at a table that's far away and the chef's over there making some food and there's just some random dude walking down the street and he yells out at him and says, hey, you go take that food over to the person over there. What? Yeah, all right. Can I eat a little bit of it? Sure, whatever, and they take it to your table. Would you be okay with that? I wouldn't be okay with that.
No, I mean, you don't know, like, are they smoking in their car? And if they're smoking just cigarettes, or are they smoking something that has some chemical? I mean, you really just don't know what you don't know. And, I'm a trained food safety professional, and I'll admit I've done some dumb stuff in my own kitchen, bringing groceries home from the store. I've made mistakes. I've made myself sick. I've accidentally made my family sick. No one's perfect. But then you throw somebody out there that has no training, that is in a work environment where they're likely already disgruntled because of all the things that I just described. They're not getting paid very well. And, I'm the consumer on the other end. And I'm always like, do I tip or do I not tip? Are they going to do something to my food if I don't tip? I almost feel like I have to, just so my food will come, safely and intact. And even tipping, it doesn't always happen that way, but it's very hit and miss. Like where I live right now, there's certain drivers and I recognize their names. And I know that if that driver is bringing my food, it's going to come very quickly. It's going to be at the right temperature. I order expecting that maybe I'm going to be disappointed and I'm going to have to throw this food in the trash. But I don't know that every consumer has the ability to do that financially. If they have, IR guns that they can shoot the temperature of their food, they don't always have that. And most people they're just tired. They got home. They just want to eat dinner and go to sleep and not really think about the safety of it.
Imagine in grocery stores, because of Tylenol and all these type of things, we've gotten used to safety caps and seals on our products and these type of things. Nothing, right? It's a paper bag with your stuff in it. And sprinkle. Who knows what's going on with that?
Claire,
yeah, if I'm a driver and I'm delivering food to your house, and this is my second or third time that I've delivered to you, and you're a cheapskate and you're not tipping me, I'm like, all right, I'm going to fix Cori's wagon and I'll show her.
Right? Yeah. And they don't have the right training to say, hey, that's an assault and you can't do that. I saw a comment from Claire talking about homebound senior adults, people who can't drive. And that's a really good point, because they're at risk. And I'd almost say if DoorDash should have some kind of badge where if you have cancer or you're elderly, maybe you put an at-risk badge for that delivery, and the restaurant and the driver knows this needs to be handled with special care. And then we also have the meal kit companies that are targeting the at-risk groups and sending out meal kits, and they're not even sending them safely for the regular consumer, and now they're sending them to at-risk consumers, and that's very dangerous.
Wow. Fantastic comments here, guys. Let's keep them coming. So LinkedIn user. So wouldn't it be nice if all these different companies, right? Food delivery, e-commerce, meal kits, dark kit, all these type of things. And the teenager who oh my goodness, yes. Oh, I just had some really bad thoughts in my head right now, right? Hey, I'm, who's that kid in England right now? Mizzy or something like that, going around doing all these pranks. Right? So are they going to screw with your food to get clicks on TikTok? Yeah, I bet they are. Oh my goodness. People ordering from home. Laura said here too, teens, right? So, oh my goodness. Yeah. So not a second thought.
It's a wildfire.
Whoa, my goodness. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm glad I don't order from these guys. If I'd even entertain the idea, not anymore. So with this lawsuit then with DoorDash, so what is this, a class action suit, or who is actually suing DoorDash?
It's a class action lawsuit, and it's about $1 billion. And I'll after this, I'll put some links in the comments for everybody so they can go take a look at what's going on. But yeah, I mean, the list here, they illegally retain Dasher tips. They have hidden and misleading fees, fraudulent pricing scheme. This, like I said, the slew of fees that have nothing to do with deliveries, and they're never passed on. I mean, it's crazy. It's an 81-page lawsuit. And I just say I wasn't surprised when I started to see. I saw it on TikTok. I started seeing people talking about it on TikTok. Is it a scam? And I had even made some comments on Twitter saying I think DoorDash is scamming people, because when I leave certain reviews, and I try and be, professional, but you guys see how I write on LinkedIn. I speak in hyperbole. I use emojis. I joke. They won't post my reviews, and it ticks me off because that's important. The next consumer needs to see that they didn't deliver my food at temperature, and their excuse was, well, we don't know if it was the restaurant's fault or the driver's fault. And I'm thinking, well, you just don't want it to look bad on your platform that you can't keep food cold. So how do you determine when you're going to post a review and when you're not? And
Right.
and I just get the generic gaslighting answers of, oh, you have to follow policy, and kind of round and round you go. But I have noticed on the platform, between the ghost kitchens and the reviews, and kind of the changes in pricing in certain areas, all of that makes me raise an eyebrow. And so I would definitely say that that's not a company that holds the same values as, the PepsiCos and General Mills and the big companies that have the capital to invest in these things, but they also understand the consequences of not investing in these things. And
well, it's kind of like, even on like Amazon or things like this, you're thinking about buying something and you read through the reviews and you hear these stories about companies then that hire other companies to put reviews on their products and have all these glowing reviews. And when you go through it, they all kind of read the same, and you're kind of like, right? Because people go to the negative on complaints, right? So if you're looking at buying a product, you don't read the good reviews. You go to the bad reviews, right? And so for me, kind of my benchmark on Amazon is around like 5%. If you're above 5% negative reviews, I'm like, right? All right, so let's take a look at that. And if it's 100% 5-star, and it's like, oh, that's a big red flag too. So it sounds like DoorDash is trying to do the same thing, right? Is to make their reviews look legit and try and bolster their business by only screening those things that they like. Wow.
Deceptive. Yeah. And then Amazon is another, I see them as a huge, huge risk for the safety of Americans, not just with food, with makeup, any CPG product that has the potential to be ingested, absorbed, inhaled. You name the method of consumption. If it's going to be consumed into your body, there need to be safety protocols. And Amazon now has this platform where anybody in the world can sell to consumers in the United States. And most people ordering on Amazon really don't put two and two together. You need to look, is it sold by Amazon? Is it fulfilled by Amazon? If both of those say yes, you have a little bit better safety net, I'll just say, because now you have some recourse with the company Amazon. But most of the time you'll find that it's not fulfilled by them, it's not sold by them. And if you do little more digging, is this company even a US based company? They may not be US based, but even worse, they don't have any entity in the US. They have no affiliation with the US. All of your money is going to Turkey. All of your money is going to the UK. And we're also finding, like in light of the Daily Harvest, event, they identified the Terra protein powder and a lot number. And that same powder and lot number was being sold on Amazon months after the recall. It wasn't taken down. There's just little to no traceability. I don't see a lot of oversight on Amazon's part because it's that usurping responsibility again. It's like, this is just my platform for people to sell, and it's their responsibility to be in compliance with the law. Well, true, but you're facilitating an environment that crooks or people, I call them clown snakes, they slither in and they see an opportunity. They're opportunists and they say, this is going to be great. I don't have to follow these regulations. Nobody knows where the food's coming from. If they don't like it, there's no protocol for returning food. So we just tell them to keep it. And here we are. And I can see that snowballing on so many more levels if the FDA doesn't get a handle on these other ways like e-commerce, food delivery, the other methods of getting food. I don't think that they're going away. And I believe they're only going to get more innovative. We're going to have robot dogs bringing us our pizza, and we're going to have drones dropping food off. And before we get ahead of ourselves, we should just try and get the base food safety under control. I don't think we have it. I don't think we have it under control.
No, definitely. And I'll put here in the comments as well. So we talk about this on the locals group. So this is a platform where we talk for free, right? You can join for free. All these different elements around these type of food safety risks. And if you're on there, one of the things that I harp on a lot is enoki mushrooms. If you're listening to this chat and you're not familiar with that, do not eat enoki mushrooms. Listeria. I see recalls for listeria time and time again. And these things are still on the market. And a lot of times when you see the picture of the package of the product, Cori, it's coming from China, right? Somewhere in China.
Oh, yes.
So foreign supplier verification, all these type of things. And I just did, as we're sitting here right now, I just did a quick little search on Amazon for enoki mushrooms. Here you go, 100 grams of fresh enoki mushrooms with a 2.5-star rating. Ooh. Now, if I'm an entrepreneurial person too, let's say that I get a screaming hot deal on some expired products, not even my company, and I throw it on Amazon and undercut the competitors by a couple bucks of the legitimate companies. Oh.
That kind of brings me to another thing that I kind of have a bone to pick with the FDA is that FSVP is a joke. I mean, the FSVP that we're doing for these Amazon sellers is, especially the ones in foreign countries, they're very small. Here, sign these assurances. The foreign supplier signs the assurances. No one's going to see the facility. No one's going to really see what's going on. Is it true? Like, yes, it's more bureaucratic paperwork than it is food safety assurance on any level, if you ask me. And I think that here in probably 5 to 10 years, the FDA is going to go, oh, wait, we need to change some things up. These people need to go see their foreign supplier. They need to physically inspect them, because I see a lot of more and more foreigners going to grocery stores in their home country. And I understand they want to sell their foods to their people in the US. You're here and you want, I have a client that is from Nigeria and he has a little Nigerian store in Chicago. He wants to provide those foods, to his community. And I don't see anything wrong with that. But there are others that aren't altruistic, and that isn't their motive. And their motive is to make money. And they go to grocery stores and buy all this stuff in bulk, and it's not really meant to be sold that way. And, they're bringing it into the US and they're selling it through Amazon. And I just see so many loopholes for breaking the law, breaking regulations, breaking company policies. Like PepsiCo does not intend for you to go to Mexico and buy a bunch of their products and then bring it across the border and mark it up and sell it and say, oh, I have Mexican Pepsi. Yeah, it was licensed to be sold in Mexico from the retailer you bought it from. And yeah, so, doing stuff with food importers, we see a lot of stuff. We get a lot of people contact us, and they have some pretty wild things that they're doing. And, we've always done this. And now with FSVP, it's like, no, you can't be doing this anymore.
Right. So now if you're working in food safety at Pepsi, let's say in this example, and now all of a sudden you're getting complaints for Mexican Pepsi and it's coming from Texas, and you're like, what? And you're tracking down these lots. And you're like, how in the world did this get there? And by the time you even track it down, whatever company did this, they're gone. Right. They're gone.
Oh, yeah. They're little, very small importers, and they will dissolve their LLC as soon as they get caught. They'll dissolve it and they'll make a new one. And it's really common at the border for this to happen.
Yeah, oh boy. Yeah. I mean, imagine now, so FDA is working on enhanced traceability and all these type of things as well. And now you have these unknown entities in these processes that are, wow, really throwing monkey wrenches into the whole thing. So pretty much, from DoorDash or Amazon or these type of companies that are doing this, these intermediaries are really creating a lot of problems.
For sure.
Wow. It'll be interesting because, some of the comments in here, kind of what we were talking about earlier is FDA is very reactionary. And I haven't seen anything done on these fronts. And, part of
Nothing.
This is, what can they do as well, right? When FDA looks at under like FSMA, for example, with comparable food safety systems, right? So you got Australia, New Zealand, Canada, they're not looking at these people, right? They're looking at the food safety systems for the governments, and all these type of things are not going to be included in that either. So even if you had an equivalency program, this is still going to be out of bounds. So Laura had a comment as well. So we were asked by our attorney to buy some TerraFlower for testing. We got it on Amazon, shipped from Canada. We have no idea if it's safe. Yeah, part of this too, and hat tip to Bill Marler. He was the person, not FDA. Bill Marler and his law firm are the people that investigated this Terra root issue with this product that was coming out of, Peru? And these mystery illnesses with Daily Harvest, and trying to figure out what in the heck was going on with that one. Any thoughts around that, Cori?
Yeah, the Daily Harvest just came out with a statement, and I'm laughing because it's so absurd. They decided they found the problem. This professor at Ole Miss, I'm sure it's a coincidence. I'm sure they didn't pay him any money to do this story. I'm sure. And if you don't know me, that's me being facetious. They paid this professor to do a study, and then they put on their website that it has been concluded that there's a substance in the TerraFlower that I'm going to mispronounce, Bachian, and that it has caused some sort of, terrible adverse reaction in a subset of the population that has a new disease that we have not yet discovered. I guess he discovered it. It's a predisposition to this one particular substance. And it's very convenient that it happened, with Daily Harvest and these consumers here, and it's not ever happened with any other product. But I'd say the other thing to point out is it's the same professor that does a lot of work with other snake oil companies, the essential oil companies that cure COVID. So, me personally, I would question the integrity of the whole setup, because I would say it's a setup. He didn't make a conclusion. He made a hypothesis. It's still a working hypothesis. If you read the white paper, and I'll dump links in after the show if everyone is interested. If you read it, it's just a hypothesis. He's just kind of speculating what he thinks could have happened. And yeah, maybe there's some people with a predisposition, but what is Daily Harvest doing to correct that problem so that they don't pick another ingredient in the future that is toxic to their consumer? It seems that this is totally just gone over the CEO's head. She doesn't think it's a problem. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. And let's just talk about our regenerative farming and all of our organic farmers and put the smoke screen up and go about our business. But the fact of the matter is that there's 300 people that got sick. There's people that are still severely ill. There's still people in and out of the hospital that have massive medical bills that they can't afford. These were people that were at the prime of their health, very health conscious people that now have horrible health problems because they thought they were eating health food because of, deceptive marketing practices and, unethical food safety practices.
Yeah. Anytime, right. And it's like everything else in life, right? There's a balance. We want and we need entrepreneurs, right? It's very important to bring us these new products because nobody wants to stagnate and, only having the same type of things bought from the same type of companies and, these type of activities. And figuring that out and getting that right balance of how do you manage these things and teaching these people these activities around food safety and how these type of things. Well, number one, right, that implies that there's a willingness to learn and that they're actually interested in providing safe product. They may not be. There's just like everything else in life, there's good players and there's bad players. I mean, just look how long it took in the food industry with FSMA and foreign supplier verification to get brokers and distributors to understand what's going on with this. Because I had conversations around this more than one time saying, hey guys, we need to understand where you're purchasing these products from so that we can evaluate those factories and make sure everything is safe. And they would come back and say, no, we can't tell you that because if we do, you're just going to go around it and buy it directly. And so, no, you don't understand, right? We have to know that. You can't hide that information. And a lot of them don't even do the work on that side. They'll just pass around the documentation from those suppliers. And if you're not careful, right, a lot of times you'll get product in your plant from another manufacturer within that distribution network. And you have to be really, really careful on those. So if food companies have a hard time sometimes maintaining these standards, imagine the consumer. Good luck.
Exactly.
So it almost sounds like we need another group of entrepreneurs that can figure out a way to manage and figure out ways to improve food safety in these areas. The closest thing I can think of, Cori, is recently we were talking about here on the chat, some of the efforts with GFSI around providing documentation free for small food manufacturers so they can start understanding what they need to know. Because again, it gets back to what I said at the beginning. They don't know what they don't know. They're just doing the same things and the same activities that have been going on forever. So if you're a small manufacturer in Nigeria and this has been your family business for 50 years, that's just how it's done. And all of a sudden you have an opportunity to do business in America with a Nigerian grocery store in the US. Fantastic, right? You're not necessarily even looking at it from that perspective. Wow, scary stuff.
It really is. There's a lot of really neat things, you go into stores and things from other countries and we want to try them, and then working in this field, it's always like, oh, but do we, you want to try it, but you might get sick. So I don't know. It's difficult. I wish that we only had these accidents when they were truly accidents, and it wasn't just negligence and incompetence. And I would argue that incompetence is negligence on management's part, because if you put people in roles that are incompetent, now your operation is negligent, because if your goal is food safety, then you should be hiring people that are qualified to do food safety.
Yeah. So as a consumer, I mean, it's food fraud on an individual level and trying to manage that as a consumer. And that's never worked out well.
No.
It's kind of a blessing and a curse, right? When you work in food safety and quality and things like this, even going out to eat even sitting in a restaurant, right? The radar never goes off, right? You're kind of looking around and you see the waiter who's bringing the cup to your table like this, right? And you're like, ooh, no, take that back. Bring me another one. And don't push.
And they're always like, what's the big deal?
Right.
What's the problem?
Yeah. So, hi, good morning, sir. Are you ready to order? Right. And we see these outbreaks from restaurants. I saw a study on that I'll put on Locals here this week, is the majority of illnesses that are traced back to restaurants and other locations like this are due to workers that are sick.
Yeah, and I commented a lot this week on LinkedIn about that, and
Yeah.
it's the business owners. They've got to find a way to move these people around, because in the defense of these people, they don't make a lot of money. They're living paycheck to paycheck. The economy is horrible right now. They need to make a living. They need to feed their kids. They're afraid if they don't come into work, or they come in, they're going to say, go home, instead of, well, go to the back and do a different activity. And so I think these companies really need to come up with better policies so that they're not facilitating an environment where people are lying because they just can't afford to not come into work. And it's really not fair to say, well, get a better job, do this, do that. Like, that's just not the reality for most people in the world. And if you are, lucky enough to have enough money that you can buy products from these places, you don't want to get sick. So you should want those companies to have policies that facilitate a good working environment so that people can, be honest. They can come to you with food safety concerns. They can be honest when they say, hey, I have diarrhea, or I've been throwing up and I don't know what it is. I can't afford to go to the doctor and I don't want to get sent home. Okay, well, let's see if we can find another productive job for you to do where you don't have contact with food, or you don't have contact, with other people. And I think it's possible. I just don't think that companies want to invest the time and money into such activities.
Well, I mean, even in a restaurant, what role is that where you're not? If you're in the front of the house, obviously, you're in direct contact with the consumers. If you're even in the back, it's like, okay, go back and prep some salads. That's probably even worse.
Yeah, you can't do that either.
And or what? Yeah, hey, go mop the floor. No, nothing, no good options, right? The only thing would be go outside and cut the grass or something maybe, and that's not going to happen. Odds are the manager's going to be like, okay, this guy's just costing me money. I've got to keep my labor costs down. Get out of here, right?
Yeah.
I'll find somebody else. Now, you have that layer of at least some oversight within a restaurant or something like this. Now, back to our earlier talk, around DoorDash or other companies like this, there's none of that. That's gone, right? That's all self-regulated. And all of those same parameters we just talked about are still in play, and there's nobody watching me, right? So, I've been sick for a week and I'm hacking and coughing, driving around in my car in my little incubator, bringing people their food. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, have strep throat, cough on the cup, just any number of things. And there's zero oversight for that.
That's scary. And oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, let's kind of bring this back to the 30,000 foot level, Cori. I mean, so part of the way I look at this is, as consumers in this kind of, as you said, this free for all, wild, wild west type way these things are going right now, is as a consumer, right? We all eat food. As a consumer, you need to be hyper aware of this and really have those things go up. At any time as a consumer, if there's a middleman in this process of how your food is being prepared and served to you, you need to be really aware of that and get a good understanding of who is that and how are they doing this. And as we had in these comments here, so we had some really great comments. In America, we just trust that our food is okay. And in this particular realm, we can't do that anymore.
Sure.
So, gosh, I mean, how do consumers, what type of things are out there, Cori, for getting people's awareness up around this? So like what iwaspoisoned.com or what other things are out there for people to get an understanding and an education around this?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of good stuff. There's some guidances that are a little bit common sense, but they don't cover things, the mishandling and the abuse that kind of happens in the background that you don't have any way of accounting for. iwaspoisoned.com is a good one. I would say if you're thinking about ordering from any of these companies, Google them. Google, what is it? Google Factor, food poisoning, factor complaints. You'll find a lot of good stuff on Reddit for these companies. It seems that the demographic of people that order from meal delivery places really flock to Reddit, and they'll tell you all the stories. There's a lot of stories on social media, but then you have companies like Daily Harvest who have hired people to go in and delete any bad comments and block anyone that says anything negative about them. So you don't really have a fair representation of what's going on. But yeah, go to Twitter, go to Reddit, go to iwaspoisoned.com. If you see a lot of pattern of people getting sick and them telling you, oh, I complained to the company, they didn't care, they didn't call me back, those are all good indicators that that company does not value their consumer. And you may get something that's completely safe and you may not. And me personally, I'm not going to risk something that's not safe when it's already been abused. Like the produce is abused. By the time it gets to me, it's marked up and it may make me sick. So like all of those factors together just aren't enough to want to order it. But yeah, I would look for a company that truly values their consumers and try to.
Well, you triggered a thought there with me as well, is that, on the sustainability side and these type of marketing things that we've been talking about as well is, damaged produce and food that's slightly not, we're reducing waste and these type of things. Okay, but what additional food safety risks does that bring into the equation?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it sounds nice. And if they spin it for, it's good for the environment. I mean, is it good for you? Are you going to live to see tomorrow? Or, are you going to be eating something with pesticides and end up with cancer? There's so many other things beyond just the first 24 hours after you consume something to say it's safe. Safety goes a lot further than that.
Really good point. So, wow. So I guess we'll kind of summarize this then. So it's definitely, I would say here, buyer beware. Man, yes. you can't assume that person on the website who says they're something is really that. And anybody now who has even a little bit of technical skills, and I'm talking a little bit, can create a website. And you can create something and be out there selling product tomorrow without any qualifications or anything, and putting it out in the marketplace. We heard that story about this, kid who went to Walmart, wouldn't buy frozen pizzas and then take them home and cook them in his oven and deliver them. Right? Good for him from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but it's a kid, right? What does he's out there making a buck, and that's all he cares about. So he doesn't know, and it's just ignorance. It's not his fault. He doesn't even know, right? He doesn't know what he doesn't know. So you have to be really, really careful on these type of things. And to your point, once people become a little more sophisticated and they've got skin in the game and they realize that things are not exactly kosher in these type of areas, and they start taking defensive measures to protect what they've grown, knowing, I'm mind reading at that point, right? But not taking into account all of these different parameters we're talking about, that's some scary stuff.
It really is.
Yeah. And any other thoughts here as we kind of close out our chat today, Cori? Or
no, I mean, I would just say if everybody should just keep kind of holding the FDA to the fire. When are you going to do something? That this is a problem, and we really shouldn't just let it go. Yep.
And so with the locals group in here, I posted a thing on that. Also, one of the things here as we close out here today too, Cori, anything coming up, any courses or things out there or activities that you're up to that you'd like people to know about?
I'll be in Norfolk, Virginia in June, on June 14th with the AFTO conference. We'll be doing a lecture on cannabis inspections and how you can improve cannabis inspections. So that'll be my next appearance.
That then would be a really good topic for us to dive into on a future show for sure, because that's another example of a business model that is there for delivery of a particular attribute of a product, let's say, and not necessarily looking at the delivery vehicle, but more to come on that at a future chat. As promised here. So after the chat closes here shortly, Cori will be throwing some links in here for the chat so they'll be available for everybody that you had promised earlier in there. So hang around here after we close this out, Cori, and we'll get those up for everybody. And with that, wow. It's kind of interesting, right? On the food safety side of things, right? Sometimes we do deliver bad news, but that's a good thing, right? You need to understand these things. You have to understand the risks and the attributes with those risks so that you can improve them. If you pretend they're not there, or you don't even know they're there, it's never going to get better. So getting the word out is really, really important. And that's why it's amazing that everybody's joining us here today and providing these fantastic comments. This is how things get better. You just can't sit back and wait for it to happen. You have to actively go out there and spread the word, get the notice out, and let other people know. So imagine, my grandmother has been ordering food on these type of things, and I didn't know that before. Now I can help her and avoid a tragedy, right? Nobody wants to have anyone go through this, right? Because food safety always comes down to the personal, right? This is about people, and it's about the activities and the things that we need to do to make sure that everyone is safe. So thank you, Cori, for all you do in this area. And this is a sticky area, and you're out there fighting the good fight, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So everybody, with that, we'll bring our chat to a close here for this week. And of course, we'll be back here next Friday again for the next food safety chat. So this week on Netflix, Poisoned is premiering. And so I'll have a special guest on next week for the premiere, right? So it's during premiere week for that. So a lot of fun activities around that. We'll do some pre-op on that as well to let everybody know what's coming on that side, because that's something that everybody needs to see for sure. Ties in with what we're talking about here today. So please join us here next Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And please join us for that participation, because this is just so much fun and we really enjoy this. So thank you again. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy it. Get out there, have some fun, and we'll see you back here next Friday. Thanks again, Cori, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks again.
Bye.